going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast this week. We're your hosts, Wes, Chris, and Marcus. Before we jump into tonight's episode, we want to take just a second and say thank you to each and every one of you guys that's been following along on the journey so far. It really does mean the world to us. We really do appreciate it. If you're checking out the show on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment. We do want to hear from you guys. We want to get some feedback on the show. And don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you can stay up to date whenever we drop new episodes. When you're done there, jump over to one of these platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and give us a follow there. It helps the show to grow. This is true podcast platform. You don't get the video, but you do get the audio, and you can download an episode for whenever you don't have a chance to sit and watch the show. Also, if you don't mind, share the show with your friends. Help us to get out there to the masses and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Time for new episodes. Lastly, if you would like to be a part of the show or you have a show idea, shoot us an email at amongtheashes@yahoo.com, or you can jump over to our DMs on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, all searchable by Among the Ashes Podcast, and leave us a message there. So now that all that's been said, let's jump into tonight's episode. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast tonight. We're your hosts, Wes and Marcus. Chris is on vacation this week. So last episode.
Last one
for How to Be a Man. Tonight's episode is on influence. But before we dive into that, for the next few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus from the teaching. But we will be having some of the men from our group, from our small group, in, and they're going to share their stories and what they've gained from this teaching. I guess, for lack of better words, teaching. We're going to bring Dwayne on.
Dwayne for sure. I think Jesse, maybe Kyle.
Yeah. So we'll take a few weeks and just have some of those guys on and just let them kind of share, like I say, their testimonies and their story and where they're at and what they've been through and then what they've gained and gleaned from this. So you guys maybe can get a little bit different perspective than just mine and Marcus's. Of course, we are not teaching word for word. The book is it's called How to Be a Man. By Rick Burgess and Andy Blanks. This is a part of, I think, the Man Church that Rick and them do. You can pick up the book if you are just jumping in on this lesson. This is, like I said, the last one. Go back under the Men of Valor tab and start with lesson 1. It's called Identity, and go through and listen. They're all, roughly an hour or so a piece. We talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we kind of get into it. So you can skip through and get directly to the teaching, or you can listen to us be idiots and just gab about nothing.
Oh, yeah. We're getting into some other stuff. Kind of bittersweet that this one's coming to an end, but we're getting to the end of it, and we're just going to have some downtime, to be honest with you guys. We'll be finishing it here and finishing recording for you, but we're still behind, several weeks behind, or separate in church and in the men's group, small group. So we'll still be in this one for a minute, but as far as the recording and bringing it to you guys, we'll be wrapping it up this episode. So we'll have a little downtime, but like Wes was saying, we'll get to interview some of the guys that's in our small group and bring them in and get their twist on.
Yeah, just to see what they've learned and things like that.
Yeah. And I think that'll be good for them too. I know, like Dwayne and Jesse, I've had them kind of be my right and left hand guy at church, and bringing them into ministry and getting them involved in what we're doing at church, and just how to be leaders and how to be men. And Dwayne's kind of been in the ministry in church. But I really wanted Jesse to come along just because he had so much of a fire when all the men's conference stuff come up.
Yeah.
Just like he was so on fire and gung-ho about it. And it's like he could really, like I almost felt like he had more vision than me, like that he could see what was going on and, he wanted to be a part of it. That's why I brought Jesse on with it. So we'll get both of those guys and maybe some of the other guys from Dora in, get their perspective on it. They're starting another ministry or this ministry as well at Dora. So I don't think that it really got it kicked off yet, but this is definitely a tool that they can kick it off with and kind of get some experience and perspective from us on it as well.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole goal, right? Is to duplicate and replicate.
Absolutely.
The Great Commission, Matthew 28:19 is going to all the world and make disciples of all nations. I mean that's the whole goal. Is not that we're the end all be all know all in this at all. I mean we're learning this as we're going through it too.
Yeah, we've said that the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes, we are men. Yes, we have our own way of doing things. And this was just something that we wanted to do with you guys to make you better, but also to make us better. Yeah. It gives us opportunity to use this platform. It gives us an opportunity to be better men ourselves, Yeah.
Well, and it gives you somebody else's perspective. If you're going through it and you're seeing it yourself, you glean what you glean from it, right? But if you see what somebody else gleans from it, then maybe you see a little different take, or maybe you can add something. For us, you can shoot us a comment or email us and say, hey, what you said there, yeah, I agree with that, but this is how I see it, and it may help us to grow better, and that's the key right there. And the influence we have in people's lives. We don't often take advantage of that, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is influence. And that's the whole goal in this. I know when you called me about wanting to do the men's conference, the Lord, I feel like had already kind of been speaking to me about it, but had you and I not, naturally we're relatives, right? But had we not had influence in one another's lives, we wouldn't have been willing to listen,
And I really am blessed, and I really, I'm really happy you guys decided to give me a shot at this and an opportunity with this, because I love it. I love the influence we have on each other, and I love the different, even we don't always agree on everything, but I like that too, that we can, go back and forth, and you see something I don't, you read something and got something I didn't see in it.
Yeah.
I like this platform on being able to teach and just get into the word and develop.
Well, I'm glad we brought you on, number one, because Chris never says anything. Just kidding, buddy. Just kidding. I got to give you a hard time.
No, it's not.
You're at the lake enjoying it, and we're here recording.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It was like 81 degrees today.
Good day today for sure. Hope it rains all weekend, Chris. I'm just kidding, man. We will know before this airs if it rained. So if you got any questions on whether it did, leave us a comment on this, and we'll let you know if he had a crappy time or not. I hope you do. Hope you step in dog poop, man. Hope a turtle nibbles on your toe. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's the thing, man, is how often do we take the opportunity to influence people in our lives? I saw this, when I started the podcast, I never really thought that you would want to be a part of it, and then when this come along, I was like, yeah, this would be a good opportunity to have him here with me, because we've been doing ministry together for 20 years, I mean, we've been together our whole lives, right? Yeah. I mean, you've known me for 46 years. I've known you for 46 years, and we've been thick as thieves the whole time, but it's an even better opportunity for me to have you here with me on this journey. And for me to be along your journey and what God's calling you to do, and then be, not only have you served me in what God's called me to do, but now I've got an opportunity to serve you in what God's called you to do. And it's just amazing. And I was sharing with Dwayne, like, I told him, I said, I don't know if you realize this, but the men we have in our small groups are pretty much handpicked. Like,
absolutely.
It's people we prayed about.
They're there for a purpose.
Yeah, it's people we prayed about, people we felt like God laid on our hearts, and then we prayed about it, and we said, okay, these specific people are the people we're going to invite. Not that anybody's allowed, right? We'll take anybody, but there were specific people in my heart that I wanted to invite, and you and Chris as well, and that's how we did it. And I said, in telling Dwayne, I said, I know you feel like that you don't know what God's called you to do or what your specific calling is. How about stop looking for the specific calling and just know you're called and just do something and take advantage of opportunities. It may not be what we want. You know, you may be wanting a brand new car and I bring a pizza box in and you're like, well, that ain't what I wanted, and you dismiss it. But had you just opened the pizza box, there might have been a set of keys in there. You know what I mean? It's a buddy of mine preached a message one time on strangely wrapped gifts, and he used that. Actually, he had 3 different pizza boxes. I think one of them had a pizza in it. One of them had a bunch of rocks in it, and one of them was light and empty. Well, one of them picked up the heavy one, was mad because he got rocks, and the other one opened it and was like, oh, it's a pizza, shared the pizza with everybody. Well, they picked up the light box, but nobody touched, oh, this is just a joke. Another one like the rocks, I'm not going to open it. And there was a $100 bill in it, you know? So he got to keep his $100 and they missed out on an opportunity because, you know, they looked at the gift and instead of opening it up and to seeing what they can do with it. And
that's something like, been going through for the men at my church. It's just we've got to get back to doing something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We just went over the purpose, and we're all called, you know, we're all chosen
something to do.
Called,
yeah,
but,
all of us do.
You know, get to work. Let's do something. And you'll find it, you know, when you jump in and you're diligent in what the Lord's wanting you to do, you'll find it.
Yeah, because you're not focused on finding it.
Yeah.
You're just focused on doing something. And it's like I talk all the time about the spiritual gifts, right? And the fruit of the Spirit. Like, if you're looking to be more compassionate, you're probably not going to be. But if you're just looking to do something and be a better person, you're going to find compassion in that. You're going to find love. You're going to find peace and joy and all those things. And that was my purpose in telling Dwayne that. It's like, it's not about what we can sit here all day long and wait on God to specifically tell us what to do and miss what God wants us to do because we're waiting for something specific, you know. We all want that burning bush moment, but we fail to see all of the other moments because we're waiting on that burning bush moment. And I told him, I said, you may be missing an opportunity because you're not willing to look past, well, it's not what I want to do, or it's not what I think it's going to be. I mean, I think about this right here. I pissed and moaned for years. Well, God, I can't be a minister anymore because I don't have a platform. Well, define a platform. You know, I mean, like, do I need a stage to preach the gospel? No, I got a freaking phone. Get on there and do it. You know,
and ain't it crazy that so many times we think we have to be behind the pulpit for God to use us. And it's so not true. Our
ministry has nothing to do with the church or inside the church. Our ministry has everything to do with what's in our heart and ministering to people around us. And you know, on that note, not taking the opportunities God gives us, we don't use the opportunity of the influence that we have in our life the correct ways either. Sure. You know, a lot of times we influence people negatively, you know, especially you know, in dating situations. You know, young couple starts dating and that young man will influence that young woman to maybe do things that she wasn't ready to do. That's a negative situation,
or vice versa.
Instead of influencing one another to do the right things, you know, we don't take advantage of the right opportunities. We often take advantage of the wrong opportunities, you know. So with that being said, we're going to kick the lesson off. But either way, I feel like God's got some big things in store. And you know, here's the thing too. We say it all the time. Yes, we are Christians here. You can use these principles if you're not a Christian. I challenge you to try it, right? I challenge you to toss out everything you know about Christianity if you just don't like it, and just start saying, hey, I'm going to apply these principles to my life and I'm going to be a better person.
Me too, because I think you'll find the Lord in it.
I think you will. I think you'll find a lot of truths about God in it, you know.
Absolutely.
But, you know, you think about your level of influence, you know, your family, we'll get into it in a minute in some statistics, but the man really influences his family more than what the wife does or what the children do. And you don't think you do, but you really do. And we'll get into that in a minute. But so, you know, don't toss the baby out with the bathwater. If you don't believe in Christ, you don't go to church, that's fine. You can still apply these principles. Just keep an open mind, you know, keep an open mind when it comes to it. It says, it doesn't take much of something to influence a situation. Have you ever been sitting at a football game and you happen to sit next to the one fan of the opposing team sitting in your section? It doesn't matter how many like-minded people are sitting around you. You feel that guy's influence every time his team makes a big play. Ever eaten a dish that was a little too salty? That right amount of salt makes a meal delicious. Overdo it, overdo it just a bit, and it's virtually inedible. Try and go for a run with a tiny rock in your shoe. You can't do it. Why? The influence of that small rock is too much. This has got to be Rick because it's talking football and food, right? If y'all don't know who Rick Burgess is, look up the Rick and Bubba show or the Rick Burgess show. You'll know who he is. It says, in other words, a little bit of influence goes a long way. One of the key characteristics of a godly man is how he influences the world around him. Jesus was the Son of God, and so any comparisons to him are a little tricky. He kind of has an unfair advantage when it comes to being a man, but it should still blow our minds that Jesus' ministry only lasted 3 years. Think about that, folks. He was 33 years old when he died. His ministry started at 30. And here we are 2,000 some odd years later with the largest religion in the world.
Think about the influence he had on the disciples. 11 disciples took his word
and has transformed it into millions.
11 guys because of Jesus' influence in their life.
Yeah. Well, think about the influence they had in their own lives, to be able to do what they do. And that's the thing. Like, I guarantee you none of those 11 ever thought they would do anything. And, and we take the scripture where Jesus says, you'll do things as great as I or greater. Right. And we think of that as, miracles or casting out demons or we'll do works as great as Jesus or greater. Well, how about the fact that Jesus influenced 11, but 11 has influenced millions?
Yep.
I use the analogy all the time. Would you rather be Billy Graham or the person who led Billy Graham to Christ? Yes, you may have only led one man to Christ, but look at how many people Billy Graham led. Yeah. And that's influence. That's doing the works as great as him or greater.
Yeah.
Jesus' time ended, but the disciples were able to carry it on. It's crazy to think about. Says those 3 years have shaped centuries. Here's a truth that will run through our time together this week. You may not be a leader, but you have influence. Some of you influence a lot of people. Some of you influence only a small number. Regardless, your life makes an impact. Very few of us are influence neutral. In other words, very few of us don't have any influence at all. So most of us either have positive influence or a negative one. How you use your influence will determine if you're living for God or living for yourself. As you spend the next 5 days considering the role of influence has on being a godly man, listen to what the Spirit is telling you about your ability to impact the world around you. And that's the thing with influence. Most times we're not just sitting there not having any influence. It's either good or bad, right?
And you're having influence whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. Just your attitude changes a lot, Day 1, Proverbs 1:8-9, it says, Hear, my son, your father's instructions, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. It says, and here's where we're coming to the statistics, guys. It says, years ago, there was a study conducted on which member of the family had the most spiritual influence. If a sibling was the first person to come to faith in Christ, there was a 7% chance the family would follow in faith. So if a sibling or one of the children found Christ, there was only a 7% chance that anybody else in that family would come to know Christ. It says, if the wife and mother became a follower of Christ, there was a 23% chance. So if the mother was the spiritual influence, 23% would come to know Jesus. It says, but if the father became a follower of Christ, and this is staggering, and I've known this statistic for a long time. I used to share it in youth group. If the father became a follower of Christ, there was a 93% chance his home would follow his lead. That's influence. 93% chance, men, listen to that. If you're struggling in your faith right now and you see your family lacking, not only is there a greater chance of them following in your footsteps, but there's a greater chance in their lives changing just by the influence you have. Mm-hmm. There's a 93% chance your entire family will come to Christ. And I don't think that's just limited to your wife and children. I think that extends beyond that. If you have siblings at that point, and your wife and children come to know Christ, your siblings probably will. And if your wife has siblings, her siblings probably will. Your mother, your father. That's the level of spiritual influence there. But now let's take and remove Christ from that. If you as men are trying to be better men, you're trying to treat your wife better and do the principles that we've learned over the last 8 lessons. If you're doing this, apply this principle to this. There's a 93% chance that if you're doing this, that your spouse is going to change and start doing the things she should be doing as a spouse. There's a 93% chance that your children are going to change and start doing the things that they should be doing as a children. Are you still going to have to yell at them to take out the trash? Probably, but they're going to start seeing you as the person of influence in their life. And God sets it up that way. The responsibility, we've said this from day one, the responsibility of a family is mine, is yours as men, is Marcus's. My wife, our family is ours, but it's mine because I asked her to marry me. Yeah. Now it's hers too because she said yes, but I chose to be married to her. She didn't ask me. That's how it is in America. I don't know about other cultures, but that's majority of cultures, right? The man asks the wife. So it is your responsibility to train your children and lead your wife and children in a way not only that Christ would, but in a way that's just making them better in general. If you struggle with getting up, going to work every day, chances are your kids are going to. If you don't want to clean the house, the chances are your wife doesn't want to. If you don't want to cut the grass, the chances are your kids are not going to. If you talk down to your wife, chances are your daughters will be talked down to by the men in their life, and your sons will talk down to the women in their life because you are that influential in their life.
Absolutely.
How you treat your spouse is going to dictate how your sons treat theirs and how your daughters expect to be treated. How you treat your spouse is going to be whether or not she is your peace and whether she does want to be submissive. And I'm not talking about bowing down and worshiping you. We've talked about it from the start. If I take on the role of everything in my home is my responsibility. If my wife and kids want to sit around and eat and watch TV and make a mess, I come in and clean it up. It just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It is my responsibility because it's my family. But chances are if I take on those roles and I'm cooking dinner, I'm putting the kids to bed, I'm helping them with their homework, I'm taking care of the yard, I'm doing all these things, they're going to say, that's too much on Dad. Let me help. Yep. And then they're going to want to do it because they know you are willing. Same thing in our churches, man. We have allowed women, and women, you have done a fantastic job. Okay. Don't take this wrong, but we have not allowed, that's the wrong word. We have made women do everything in the church. We have sat back and gone, on special services on Easter Sunday, or if the church has a special event, we go, or if they need us to be a parking lot attendant or whatever, we may go because our wives are harping on us, wants us to go, but we're not going to be active, right? Mm-hmm. And we've made the women do everything. And that's a load they shouldn't have to bear.
It's not really that we made them. They didn't.
They stepped up.
Exactly. We made it to where if it's going to get done, we're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's bad on us.
That's bad on us. Not that we forced them. Hey, you're going to go do this. Yeah. We forced them by not being willing, and that's wrong. That's wrong on us. Now, I'm not saying women don't have a role to play in the church and that they don't do a fantastic job. What I am saying, and I've said it before, if Miss Sally teaches the children, you go to Miss Sally and say, hey, look, I'm looking for something to do. So how about giving me your lesson plan? And if you're not here, I got you. You don't have to call. You don't have to let anybody know. You just choose not to come today. 5 minutes in, after time to start, if you're not here, I'm going to go ahead and start. And give her that peace of knowing that it's not all on her.
Well, and that's our responsibility. I've thought about that just with our pastors. Our pastor's gone on vacation. He shouldn't have to call another evangelist.
No.
And not that we don't get me wrong. I love our evangelists that come. But he should be able to say. Marcus, hey,
can you step up and do this?
Yeah. Hey, Wes, can you come? Hey, I'm not going to be here next Sunday. Can you preach for me? Sure.
Well, it should be one of those things where we know he's going. We just go to him and say, hey, do you need me to fill in?
Yeah.
Without him having to even having the thought of having to think about getting somebody else.
Absolutely right.
Hey, I know you're going. Is there anything I can do? Do you need me to preach? Do you need me to find somebody to preach so you can focus on doing what you need to do? How about, Pastor, I know everybody wants you at the hospitals and I know your time's spread thin. Is there anybody I can go visit? Take the initiative is what I'm saying. That's the type of influence that if you do start taking the initiative, you'll have the type of influence to be able to know that you're dependable, and other people will see that.
Yeah. Not only does that reflect at your home, it'll reflect at church as well.
Yeah.
They see people, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but man, people are so excited. We haven't had a men's ministry. We've had, women's prayer group or whatever for a long time. We haven't had a men's ministry or anything like that in a long time. And just for the couple of weeks that we've done it, man, even the women are excited that the men are doing something, and they've come up and think, man, thank you for doing this. Well, it's not me, but it needed to be done, but just that will reflect, that influence right there gets a fire going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They see that. Like I said, it doesn't just apply to your home, but it'll also apply in church.
Well, think about why that is. You've been faithful to that church for 20 years. You play in the worship band. You're dependable. Your level of influence says, hey, I can trust this. I can trust this because I know he's not somebody who's just flying in and flying out.
Yeah.
He's dependable.
Weird. I think
you have influence there.
I know it's weird for me, and I think it's probably to some extent weird for them. That's all the only role I've ever done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it speaks.
But you've done it faithfully.
Not for me, but I think it speaks to the Lord that they see me taking on a role, something's changed, something's clicking.
Something's changed in him, but he's also been dependable. So we know if we see that change and we know he's been faithful over the little things, we can make him rule over many. So he's been dependable. He's got some influence. He's willing to do it. God must be moving.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We don't realize how much influence we carry just by our actions and the things that we do. On your job, you want to get promoted, don't go in there and beg for a promotion. Walk through the shop or wherever you're at. If you see a piece of garbage, bend over and pick it up. It's just the right thing to do, but you don't know who's watching. Don't grumble and complain. Be on time, be dependable. Those type things create that level of influence in your life. You can create positive influence or negative wherever you're at. Proverbs 18-9 quotes a father to his son. Here, as in here.
That's Proverbs 1:8-9.
I'm sorry, Proverbs 1:8-9 quotes a father to his son. So he's saying, hear, as in with your ear, my son, your father's instructions, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. Now, before you think this devotion falls into the category of, I don't have any kids, I don't need to know this, listen to me just for a moment. As we have mentioned, I want you to know this stuff so you can A, watch for it in your world, and B, file it away for whenever you do have a family of your own or whenever you're entrusted with some sort of responsibility, okay? Says, let's be clear, a home that is perfectly in line with the biblical picture of a healthy family has a mom and a dad who both seek God personally and lead their family to do the same. We know that in our world, families aren't always perfect. How a family looks from house to house may differ, but here's a truth to remember. A man in the home who seeks God and serves his family has a ton of influence and faith on his children and wife. Maybe you have experienced this in your own life, maybe not, but I am willing to tell you, but what I am telling you is that what I am telling you is that you have it in your power to one day be the kind of man to be that kind of man. And it's not too soon to begin laying the groundwork. So not only developing your relationship with Christ so your family sees it, but develop a healthy responsibility of what needs to be done around the home. Go into your marriage that way, man. If you're single, go into your relationships that way. When your girl comes over to your apartment or your wherever you're renting or whatever, don't be sloppy. You know what I mean? Clean up, and don't just clean up when she's coming. Clean up all the time. Look at the way you dress. There's nothing wrong with wearing joggers and gym shorts, right? I'm comfortable that way. I love t-shirt and jeans, but if I'm going to see the president, guess what? I need to wear a suit and tie, right? If I'm going to court, I need to look presentable. There's things in life that you need to do, and there's times that you can be relaxed, but sometimes even in those relaxed moments, you need to step up. Mm-hmm. Start being the things that you want to be in your life. And it starts with the small things. And when you're doing that, then you begin to create influence. People begin to trust the fact that you're who you say you are and who you want to be. This is part of what it means to lay the groundwork, is to follow the words of this proverb. One of the most important things you can do is to take the attribute of a teachable individual. When your dad or your mom or somebody of influence in your life is trying to teach you, especially spiritual things, be accepting of their influence. Not only will it shape who you are, it allows you to be in a better position to be a leader in your own home one day. So think about that. You know what I mean? Be who you want to be. And nobody wants to be a lazy slob, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay to be a lazy slob sometimes, right? But nobody wants to be that. So take the initiative to just step up on a daily basis and do things a little differently. Mm-hmm. You want to wear gym shorts and shoes today and relax, that's fine. But tomorrow, dress it up a little bit. Again, I love t-shirt and jeans. And a hat. That's where I'm comfortable. But sometimes I just need to step it up a little bit. And when I do, people's like, hey, look at this guy, Day 2, it says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. That's 2 Timothy 4:7. It says, today I want to point our attention to 2 legendary figures. And this is huge for us because of where we're from. Huge for Rick as well. It says, both of whom are named Paul. The first is Paul Bear Bryant, who is one of the greatest football coaches in college football history, at least up until 2000.
St. Nick.
Yeah, Roll Tide. It says, there's no doubt that Coach Bryant had a positive influence on many men. Then there's the Apostle Paul. This Paul is clearly a hero in the faith. However, if you were to ask men, especially men in our home state of Alabama, which one of these 2 Pauls they would consider to be their hero, many would pick the football coach, and I find that interesting. It said in his book, Bear Bryant on Leadership, Pat Williams wrote that on Bear Bryant's deathbed, the coach told the attending nurse he had regretted not using his influence to point more people to Jesus Christ. But when we look at the Apostle Paul's letters to Timothy, written near the very end of Paul's life, we see Paul saying the following: I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Henceforth, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. 2 Timothy 4:7-8. Which one of these 2 men set the best example of what our state of mind should be as we near the end of our life? Better yet, which one set the example of how we should live? Bear Bryant, great coach, like one of the greats. Him and Saban right at the top 2. There's some others. You may be a Harbaugh fan, a Ryan Day fan. Yeah. Don't know why. You may be. Those are great men, but they're all going to say the same thing at the end of their lives. They're going to have regrets. You know what I mean? I should have been a better husband. I should have been a better father. I should have been a better Christian. I should have told more people about Christ with my level of influence. That's the goal. We need to be more like Paul, saying, I've done everything I could do. Everything. I have no regrets in my spiritual life. I have no regrets in my home. If God forbid I were to get sick and die early and it's terminal and I have time, I should not sit there and think, well, I didn't teach my kids about Jesus. I didn't teach my sons how to be a father. I didn't teach my sons how to be a husband. I didn't show my daughters what to expect out of a husband. You know what I mean? I didn't let my wife down. That's the kind of men we should be. And it's hard.
It is.
It's hard.
It really is.
You know, it's hard to know we've done everything we could do, but if we are, you will see. Well, you'll see one way or the other by the level of influence in your home. If your kids badmouth you and they're smart alecks and they talk down to you and your wife, chances are you hadn't led them very good. You know. So now you may be saying, but I don't have the same platform or influence that either of the Pauls had. It said, let me tell you my story. My grandmother was and this is Rick Burgess. My grandmother was a powerful woman of God. She was also a lunchroom lady. And I've met hundreds of people around Birmingham, Alabama, who told me that she led them to Jesus Christ. We idolize great coaches, and yet the vast majority of them don't use their considerable influence for God's glory. Coach Bryant admitted that he didn't. And while he and many others like him are big deals on earth, with statues and stadiums carrying their name, in heaven, my grandmother is a much bigger deal. I mean, think about that. Think about that. Your level of influence. Would you rather be Billy Graham or the person who led Billy Graham? They're both honorable, you know, but I just can't help but think Billy Graham strolled into heaven. Everybody's like, woohoo. Whoever led him in, I'm sure it erupted. You know what I'm saying? Beginning to use your influence will now lead you, beginning to use your influence now will lead you to build on your influence in the future. Don't waste the opportunities God has given you to impact the world in his name. So you got to take it beyond just your home, you know, as well. You can impact the world around you, no matter how small or how big you feel that platform is. Day 3, Matthew 28:18-20. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. One aspect of what that means in being a man is seeking to grow in Christ likeness is how you use the influence you've earned. As a Christ follower, one of these main ways you use your influence is through sharing the gospel message of Jesus Christ, which again goes back to the 3 years Jesus walked the earth, influencing a lot of people, but he really influenced 11, you know. Well, he influenced 12 because Judas, even though he did what he did, he still influenced. Right. Judas believed. Yep. He realized he made a mistake, but the 11 from there did what he told him to do, right? Go make disciples of all nations. And their level of influence is the only reason that they could do that, because they saw Christ and what he did, the level of influence that he had on their lives, but then they were able to take and replicate and duplicate that moving forward. It says he has authority to send us out into the world to advance his kingdom into every corner of society. He does even further and tells us that as he sends us, he also goes with us. He also goes with us on the journey. This is not only comforting, but also means that if you have submitted to Jesus' lordship, you carry his influence along the journey as well. And that's pretty powerful stuff. It says, if you unpack the Great Commission, Jesus says that step 1 is to make disciples. Though this may look differently for you in your life, making disciples essentially means that you should be able to lead others deeper in their faith. It means you play a role. In other people, especially your friends, becoming more devoted as Christ followers. And again, remove Christ from it. Your level of influence determines how your family turns out, how the people around you turn out. Whether or not you're positive or negative changes who they are, and it changes their world, essentially. You know, anything you want to add to that?
No, it just says right here, it says Jesus wants us to use us to influence the world for his sake. But before we can have any influence on the kingdom of God, we must first be disciples ourselves. If we want to teach others to obey all that Jesus has commanded us, we must first learn and apply these commandments to our own life. Only then will we be able to influence. Only then will our influence be most effective. If we don't get it,
we can't expect anybody else to get it.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to not only your relationship with Christ, you've got to get it and understand that, but then your relationship in your home. You can be a godly person and you can lead people spiritually and still not lead your family.
Sure.
You can be absent in other areas. We are trying to get to a place, or I feel like I can speak for both of us, to where we are hitting on all cylinders. We're not just the ones who drag people to church or make them read their Bible or make them pray. We're also the ones that are influencing our wives to be better women and our children to be better at whatever it is in their life that they're struggling with, better students, whatever it may be. Matthew 9:37-38, it says, "Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." It says, imagine sitting in a room with people who claim to love football. What if less than half of them ever attended, watched, or listened to at least one game? Common sense would tell you that most of these guys aren't even really fans. How could they be? I mean, how could anyone who says they love football not attend, watch, or listen to at least one of the games? Here's some more statistics. A few years ago, Lifeway Research polled thousands of Christians about their habits when it came to sharing their faith. Of those polled, 80% replied that it is very important to share your faith. 80% of people polled said absolutely it's important to share your faith.
Yeah.
But 61% admitted to not having shared their faith in the last 6 months. That's more than half of the people. Of those 80%, more than half of them said, yeah, I hadn't shared my faith in the last 6 months. And that's all of us, right? I mean, I think that's probably majority of us. How many of us take the opportunity and seize the day and share?
How many times do we make an opportunity?
Yeah.
It's not just, it makes it easier if there's something already brought up to, bring up Christ and whatever, but how many times do we make opportunity?
Yeah.
We're probably in that 61%. Right?
Yeah, we're sitting around waiting on opportunity and we miss it and it comes by, but we dang sure aren't making it. John 14:23-24, Jesus says, "If anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him. And we will come to him and make our home with him. Whoever does not love me does not keep my words." And what did Jesus command us? Among many other things, his last words to his disciples were, "Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations." And we're not even, we say we love him, but we're not keeping his commands. That's a commandment. Go do it.
Yep.
And that's not just to the 12, because then they are to go and share and then share that same message. And 2,000 years later, we're still supposed to be doing the same thing, but we've become a come ye generation. Come to my church, come to my event, listen to the apostle, listen to the prophet, listen to the one who does miracles. No, go find these people. Go share your faith.
Well, there was a reason too. If they just got it, and it goes for us, if they just got it and didn't teach anybody else, then Jesus would have had to live forever.
Yeah. Because it's dang sure not going to continue.
Yeah. So if we just get it, how have we continued the faith? Have we become disciples? If we don't disciple others, if we don't share his word, how does it keep going? Not to say that the Lord couldn't do it.
Well, sure, but there's a reason why.
Sense?
There's a reason why he was sent and died. It wasn't for him to be the one doing it. He's the Savior of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to us to continue that going, but we don't take advantage of that. Yeah. We sit around and wait on somebody else to do it. It says, if I say that I believe in and love Jesus, but I don't follow his instructions, then I'm a hypocrite. I don't truly believe what I claim. The reason some Christians have followed through with this commandment is that they truly believe what Jesus meant. So what about the other folks? Jesus said that if we love him, we'll obey his commands. He said only those who do the will of the Father will inherit the kingdom of heaven. That's Matthew 7:21. And he said that the gate is narrow, the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few, Matthew 7:14. So it's not easy to do, but if we love him, if we care about him, we'll do it. And if we do it, then we inherit the kingdom. We don't think about that. We think just because we said a prayer on one Sunday in church and asked Jesus in our heart, that's enough. Well, what if you get married and you say, I do, and that's it? What if you have a baby and you say, yep, I had a baby, and that's it? It never matures. It never grows. Therefore, it's probably going to die. Therefore, your marriage is probably going to die. Mm-hmm. Therefore, your relationship with Christ is going to die because you're not putting in the work. You're not putting in the effort. Bottom line is that you must be a man whose life backs up his stated belief. You have to obediently follow after God. There's no quicker way to surrender your influence than by saying you believe in something and not living the way you say you live. And that's very true. I can say I'm a Christian all day long, but if I never talk about Christ, what good is it? And we'll be lucky to make it to heaven according to what the scripture says there, because we're not obeying the commands of Jesus. It's crazy. Jeremiah 20:9 says, if I say I will not mention him or speak any more in his name, there is in my heart as it were I cannot read. Let me start over. If I say I will not mention him or speak any more in his name, there is in my heart as it were a burning fire shut up in my bones, and I am weary withholding it in, and I cannot. In other words, Jeremiah is saying, if I sit there and keep my mouth shut, it's like my bones are on fire. And I feel that way, and I'm sure many of you have probably felt that way. How many times have you had that feeling in church or out and about, wherever, and you feel like God is saying, hey, I need you to go talk to this person, and your heart's beating out of your chest, That's what Jeremiah's talking about here. But yet, how many times do we ignore it and move on? So the Bible is a lot of things. It's a history of God's interactions with us. It's full of teaching that we can apply in living. It's a teaching that we can apply living godly lives. It's a narrative story of who God is and how much he loves us, but it's also an awesome place to go for inspiration as a man. There are countless examples of men whose lives inspire and encourage us. They teach us how to be men. One of my heroes from the Bible is Jeremiah. Jeremiah is a guy who understood what it meant to use his influence. And as much as anyone, he understood the burden of influence. I'm so convicted by verse 9 of Jeremiah chapter 20. Immediately before this verse, Jeremiah is experiencing persecution for speaking the word of God. Jeremiah is forced with considering what it might be like if he were to simply keep quiet and avoid persecution. Be silent and have people like you. Be silent and have people like you, or speak the truth and have people react with hostility. Jeremiah's words in verse 9 show that being silent isn't an option. So you can be silent and everybody be just like you are, or you can speak out and do what's right, and people may react violently, or you may just change their life.
I remember one time, and it was a gut check, and it kind of made me think about this. And I remember one time in the youth room upstairs, we had all the chairs around the walls. And I don't remember, I think it was like kind of after service, you know what I mean? I think the Spirit had just led like that right there. And it seemed we were all quiet, and Tracy spoke in tongues. And I'd never prayed for it. I've never thought that the Lord would ever use me like that right there. But he was giving me the interpretation right then. And I was like, oh my God, Lord, you want me to say that? Mm-hmm. It's like, no, Lord, I can't do it. And it's like, say it. All he kept saying was say it, say it, say it. And it's like, Lord, you want me to say it? Lord, it's like, okay. Well, then I got boldness all of a sudden. And before when I opened my mouth to say it, you gave the interpretation. Right then, I was like, Lord, if you ever tell me something like that right there, I'll do it. Just like that, because I wasn't trying to hinder the Spirit.
No.
You know what I mean? I didn't have it like that.
Well, it goes to show you the power of God. He's going to get his message out regardless. But if you're not willing, I'll find somebody who
absolutely.
is.
What was crazy is, as you were saying, it's like a ticker tape. Every word that you're saying was in my spirit. You know what I mean to say? I just didn't do it.
Well, in teachable moment there, I don't ever want to do that again.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
learned my lesson, God, because you feel like garbage.
But but it goes back to like Jeremiah. If I don't do it, it's burning in my bones. Yeah. It was just like I didn't really have no choice. It was fixing to come out one way or the other, and it did.
And that's the thing. Like, we can sit there. Let me read this, and I'll say what I was going to say. It says Jeremiah speaks of a fire that is shut up in his bones at the thought of not sharing the truth of the Lord has given him. He can't keep himself from speaking about God. Here's a thought. What if you were to actually speak about the things you're passionate about, the things of God, no matter the response of no matter the response of those who heed your words. So what if we get to a point to where we don't care what people think? It becomes like that fire shut up in our bones, like you're saying. We don't care what people think, and we just share what the Holy Spirit shares with us. We do what God tells us to do. We tell the truth of the gospel. How much is our level of influence going to grow? Mm-hmm. And it's going to grow in a positive way. And the more you do that, as your influence goes, the more people are going to trust in you and believe in you that you're doing what is right. Now, you can create a level of influence by being a deliverance minister or a prophetic minister or whatever. But if your actions are not backing up what it is that you're claiming, you're no good. But it goes the opposite direction too. If all you're doing is sitting back and claiming to be a Christian, but you're never willing to step out on faith, you're never willing to step up and do what God tells you to do, then your level of influence is still going to grow, but it's going to grow in a negative way where nobody's going to believe anything that you say. Well, he calls himself a Christian, but he don't ever talk about God.
Yeah, not only that, they'll question this, and I've gave this example, and I've been convicted of it myself. How can you expect your kids, even though you have that influence on them, if you don't ever live it around them, how can you say, take it to the Lord? You need to pray. Have you prayed about that? Dad, I think I need a new job. I think I want a new job. Well, have you prayed about it, son? Well, no, Dad. Why would I pray about it? I didn't. When you were laid off last year, I didn't see you praying about it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If we don't ever have that influence, if we don't ever live that right there, if we don't ever show it, that's our family, but it's easier for me to convey this message, and it's easier probably for you to think about the influence on your family because they're so close to you, and we're not all the time as much as we should influencing and having that influence on outside sources other than our family. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if we can't even share it with our family and have that influence on our family,
we're not going to do it with anybody else.
How much easier is it for our family?
Yeah.
And we don't do it as much as we should. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, and that's one thing to think about too. I mean, again, let's remove Christ from it for those of you who are unbelievers. If you tell your wife you love her, but you don't ever show her, and I'm not talking about flowers and candies and all that stuff. I'm talking about like you really show her, if you're a lazy husband, why should she believe you love her just because you say it? Same with your kids. If you don't interact and show your kids things and teach them things and be there for them, why would they have faith that you're ever going to, So your level of influence is bigger than what you think. And we need to decide, do we want it to be positive or do we want it to be negative? As Christians, or followers of Christ, we need to use our level of influence to influence others to Jesus and to bring them to us. As men, we need to use our level of influence to grow our families into the people we want them to be. Not only spiritually, but also in this life that we live, to know how to be a husband, to know how to be a wife, to know how to be a good person, to know how to be loved, to know how to love. We need to do those things, and it all comes back to us as the spiritual head and the influence that God has given us in our lives. Honestly, in my opinion, you probably could have started this lesson off with influence,
Well, I think everything that we've gone through, you can apply with influence. Your identity. How much does your identity have influence? How much does your integrity have influence? How much does your purpose have influence? Yeah. How much does your surrender and your passion and your commitment have influence?
It all comes back to us, guys. I mean, and that's our goal with this is trying to make spiritual leaders, but just make leaders within the home. And again, if you're not married, then leaders within your own circle, whatever that may be, influence is a huge part of that. Like it's all of it, really. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know who you are, you can't influence the right way. If you don't have passion,
the right way, you're right.
If you don't have passion, you don't know how to influence. I mean, there's so many things there. So, yeah, I mean, it's deep. That's just our take on it. It's every single one of these has just kind of been eye-opening. What's funny for me too is almost every week, if not every week, as I begin this lesson, I'm either hearing some sort of teaching on it or some sort of scripture that's been a part of what I've been. Yeah. So it lets me know that not only does God want me to know this and that I'm in his will, but it lets me know the importance of it as well. Absolutely. You know what I mean? It's very key, very important.
Yeah. That's what we got to do is learn how to apply it in our lives.
Yeah. So with that being said, guys, we appreciate you being along on this journey with us. It's not stopping. Like I said, what we said at the beginning of the episode, we're going to have some guests on the next few weeks and get their take on this. So it's continuing, but then we will be moving into The Forge. If you haven't watched the movie The Forge, you should watch it. Mm-hmm. It's very impactful, but there's also a teaching that goes along with it, and we're going to break it down. And we're going to take the principles from it and start applying it to our lives as well. I would challenge any of you guys out there, go ahead and start a small group. Even if you don't have a large circle of people, get on TikTok, start one there, start a live, invite men in, whatever we can do to help men grow. Iron sharpens iron, right? Yeah. And that's our goal. And that's our purpose in life, is to make one another better. Don't see it selfishly and from your own selfish gain. See it as what you can do to help somebody else become better. And in turn, you're going to become better through it as well.
And if we look at it as discipleship, the Forge is going to be a longer study. And I think what we've done, and I mean, that's nothing new, but small group, the way we've done it, I think if you went back and you learned the Forge and then tried to come back and teach the Forge, it's going to be too much. I think you need to have a group together, learning it together, to get that study right there.
Well, and again, we've laid a foundation right here. I mean, I think you probably could have started the Forge before this, but I think it's good that we laid this foundation on figuring out who we are. Mm-hmm. And then we can figure out how to make other men better men. So. It's got to start there. I mean, in the movie, the guy couldn't have done what he done if he didn't know who he was, So, well, all right, guys, that's it for tonight. Again, we appreciate each and every one of you who's been along on the journey. If you got any complaints, thackattack@gmail.com. Send them to crew. I'm just kidding. Seriously, though, if you do have any complaints, you want to talk about it, you disagree with something we said, or maybe you do agree, you got some better points you think you could expound on it, shoot us an email at amongtheashes@yahoo.com. We'd love to bring you on. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can come on and share your thoughts with this as well.
You got any topics or anything that goes with it?
Anything you want to learn, or you want us to help you learn,
or questions that you had that you couldn't get straight live with us. Shoot us a question. that you might have had on any of the topics.
Yeah, you can email us amongtheashes@yahoo.com. You can direct message us on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, all found at Among the Ashes Podcast. If you are listening to or would rather listen to it in podcast form, you can find that on all the major podcast platforms, all searchable Among the Ashes Podcast. And if you are watching us on YouTube, if you don't mind, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. I'll get back to you. It doesn't matter what it is, good, bad, right, wrong, or indifferent. I will respond. My ego won't let me not.
And I'll try to make this promise to you guys. I'll get better with it, and I'll help him out too.
Yeah.
He's way ahead of me on this stuff, so I'm trying to catch up. So.
I enjoy doing it. Yeah. I enjoy doing it. But yeah, leave us a comment.
I want to be more involved in it too.
Yeah, it's fun.
Be more involved with you guys also.
It's fun. So yeah, leave us a comment there. Hit the like button. Turn the notification bell on. You will find every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Central, we will be bringing Men of Valor in some form or fashion. Mm-hmm. Then Tuesdays, 9 a.m. Central Time, we will just do interviews and random fun stuff like that. You can find that stuff there. So make sure you turn the notification bells on so you can know when we upload. And last but not least, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. It helps us out. Share this with somebody else. Get them to follow. Yes. Get them to listen. Get them to subscribe. It helps us. It helps you. And look, it's free. It costs you nothing to do so. Be kind. Be compassionate. Help somebody out. So that being said, we love you. Jesus loves you. Remember, Romans 8:31 says this: if God be for you, who can be against you? And if that's the case, then we can push through life, right? Make sense? All right, guys, we love you. Go crush today, crush tomorrow. Do it with passion. Know who you are. Be a person of integrity. Surrender it all that good stuff if you've been following along. And last but not least, we're going to put lesson 9. It's real simple. Keep your heads up. We'll see you next time.